Following up on that, Nick Cabrera is a student here at the university and will tell you about an experience he had on student council, which ties into some of what Buddy said and our concerns about free speech here. Nick, you got the podium. I think we got all of yours. That's right. There's your hands.
Sweet. Awesome. Thank you all for being here today. I really appreciate it, just your support and your presence at our first inaugural Jefferson Council meeting. It means a lot, especially with the amount of support I've gotten from the board and all of you. We greatly appreciate it. So for those of you that don't know me, my name is Nick. I'm the current YAF president, and I'm a TJC board member. For those of you that aren't familiar with YAF, it stands for the Young Americans for Freedom, and our overarching organization is Young America's Foundation. So I'm here today to talk to you about how radical student council is, or maybe just more or less a conservative perspective of being a student at this university. So here's a quick timeline. I entered the university August of 2020 as an Eccles and UAA scholar. I just declared my second major in environmental science, and I declared my earlier one in astronomy last year. I was always involved in student government in high school, so I thought coming into the university, I really wanted to get immersed in student council, really make a change for the students for the better. So I ran for one of these student council first year positions. 22 people ran, and they gave 3 positions to the top 3 elected. I came in second place, so I got the position. But then I started realizing some of these pieces of legislation that they were passing without debate were just so radical, against our Constitution, and disobeying Jefferson's legacy. And one particular one that troubled me, and one that I spoke out on, was a resolution denouncing repeated instances of racist statements by professors at this university. And it's a pretty lengthy piece of legislation, so I'll leave it there for a quick minute if you want to go through and read it yourself. But I'm going to cover the quick points. So there's a professor in the comm department, Professor Leopold, and he quoted a United Nations joke. And he prefaced that it wasn't really actually a joke. He was trying to make some analogies. And I asked, well, further from that, they said other professors' racist statements deemed that they should call to improve the standards of yearly diversity and bias awareness training, more diversity, equity, and inclusion. And they also wanted to implement a strike system for professors. And I was very intrigued by this. So I asked how exactly it would work. And when I asked how exactly it would work, I was told 3 strikes and you're out, like baseball. So I argued that Jeffrey Leopold was not being given his due process, and they were trying to limit conversations of race to only Black Americans, which I found to have a lot of flaws. So we're going to watch a quick clip of this video. I think many of you all may have seen it already. I do warn it does have a little bit of vulgar language, not for me, but for my peers.
But it seems that I have to go there. So let me start with the first thing. Free speech. Since we want to be Constitution buffs or whatever, guess what's not protected? Hate speech. So let's start there, okay?
A resolution denouncing repeated instances of racist statements by professors at the university. I would also like to say that.
I'm just going to go on to explain just the context of why I was speaking out in the first place. And I just want to show you exactly what Mr. Leopold has said.
Funny, interesting, I think, that funny, but let me read this to you in the sense of it being a joke. A worldwide survey was conducted by the UN, and the only question asked was, would you please give your honest opinion about solutions to the food shortage in the rest of the world? The survey was a huge failure. In Africa, they didn't know what food meant. In Eastern Europe, they didn't know what honest meant. In Western Europe, they didn't know what shortage meant. China, they didn't know what opinion meant. In the Middle East, they didn't know what solution meant. In South America, they didn't know what please meant. And in the USA, they didn't know what rest of the world meant. You can see,
And he basically goes on to explain that it really wasn't, it was just a joke. It wasn't that he was saying that people in Africa don't know what food meant. I mean, that's dangerous. But he was reading it in the context of it being a well-known United Nations joke. So I debated it and asked how this would fulfill his due process. Is it actually within the constitutional rights that student council is supposed to obey? And my peers had a lot to say about it.
Work for you. When black folks say some shit is racist, believe them the first time. Because again, if you want to learn more about the history and the insidiousness of white supremacy, gaslighting, racial dog whistling, even in the context of what is seemingly a United Nations joke, the United Nations joke is not exempt for racism and white supremacy because anti-blackness is global, period.
Is a such thing called Black Studies, and we have the Woodson Institute, which is a leading institution for Black studies in this country. So if you want to be educated on that, don't ask Black women to do it, go take a class or read. I am sick and tired of going back and forth about y'all about what is racism. So I hope everybody reads an article or watches a video after this meeting, and I hope that we don't have to revisit this conversation in the same way again, because next time it's not going to be as cute and classy.
And I would also like to address Representative Cabrera. You mentioned that you are Puerto Rican, and as a Latinx student, I just want to echo again, I am also a Latinx student, and I just am not understanding where you're not understanding that there are multiple Black people who have spoken up tonight and are telling you that they were offended. What are you not understanding? You as a Latinx student, myself as a Latinx woman, I will never understand what Black people go through, and you don't either. So why are you speaking on issues that don't involve you?
I am mad, not because you disagree, Cabrera. I am mad because you used language that was simply gaslighting and disrespectful. And if I had any ounce of professionalism within me, because you invoked professionalism, I would cuss you the fuck out. But because I am a student and I am a representative of this community, I will refrain from doing so. Fuck those professors, because you know what? They got a salary, and they got a job, and they got tenure. But a first generation student who's from an underrepresented community, being a victim of their violence, and you know what? Words are violent.
It's very concerning that, again, we have non-Black people giving themselves agency to decide what is and what is not racist. If you have two Black co-sponsors telling you that this is racist, or you have a Black student coming forward and saying that they feel that this is racist and they were therefore intimidated, that just needs to be that. So I feel similar.
I'll go ahead and stop it there, but I skipped a lot of parts, so if you all ever have a chance to go back and watch it and just need some entertainment, definitely go back and do that. It's very interesting. So like I said, if we're going to limit conversations around race to only Black Americans, it's almost like we're starting to transition to a climate with limited free speech. Jefferson once said that the greatest danger to American freedom is a government that ignores the Constitution. And I know you can say whatever you want about U.S. Congress, U.S. Senate, but at Mr. Jefferson's university, his own student council is ignoring the Constitution. The following 24 hours were filled with hate, hostility, and harassment. I'll be the first to admit it was really hard to deal with when I woke up the next morning, seeing my name all over Twitter, Instagram, in class GroupMes, and whatnot. and it just continued. But it was really the Jefferson Council and this community that was able to help me. It was the Young Americans for Freedom that were there at those dark times. So this is just continuing the timeline. Eventually YAF received the video from an anonymous tip line. Mid-November to March, I came into contact with Tom Neal, and eventually became a board member for TJC. The university administration makes statement and takes action. I left that date blank. There hasn't been one. So, despite sending a 32-page document citing my police reports that I had to file when I received physical threats trying to eat dinner at the dining hall and studying for my calc exam. And now, you're thinking, well, what can TJC actually do? We can do lots of things, and these are just some examples. Written support to the Board of Visitors, assistance in getting the story publicized, and we work to protect Jeffersonian values through speaker series with Young Americans for Freedom at the University of Virginia. Again, this is one of my favorite Jefferson quotes. Reason and free inquiry are the only effectual agents against error. Reason and persuasion are the only practical instruments. So of course, we host some speakers to get that across. We hosted Chip Roy and Rich Lowry in defense of Mr. Jefferson in October. We also hosted Mia Love, the first Black Republican congresswoman from Utah District 4, which is now represented by Burgess Owens, I believe. And she talked a lot about preserving American tradition. And then now, probably my favorite, and y'all probably heard of it, this Tuesday, we have the honor of bringing Vice President Mike Pence here to the University of Virginia. And this is really what we are able to do as TJC. We're able to preserve Jefferson's legacy. Jefferson would be proud of us for promoting intellectual diversity, dedication, and bringing back compassion to his university. So if you have your phone out, tickets are sold out technically, but we do have some tickets reserved, so you can scan this QR code if your phone reaches it. But if you want to come, it's on next Tuesday, and you don't have a ticket, just see me, and we'll make sure that you get one. So to wrap up, my college experience has not been the best. It has not been what I hoped for it to be, but you just make the best of it. And with TJC, with the support system at the Young Americans for Freedom, I have been able to make the best of it, and I'm forever grateful. So we're promoting an academic environment based on open dialogue throughout the university, evident in the speaker series, and we're preserving the Jefferson legacy through all of you, through student groups like us, and through the speaker series as well. And I want to leave you with this one Jefferson quote. I'm a greater believer in luck, and I find the harder I work, the more I have of it. I know we've done a lot of great work in the past 2 years, but the work can't stop here. There's going to be other things that come up throughout my college experience, throughout everyone else's, that we're going to have to work for. We're going to have to work harder than the day before to make a real difference at this university. And for that, I thank you all.